Formula Access. Today we've got a really special guest. Today we have, at your request, you have requested people of motorsports from the US. And I am here to bring those people to you, and I am working very, very hard to hunt them down and get them on the show. Today we've got a really special guest. We've got Michael D'Orlando. He is the 2022 USF2000 IndyCar champion. You guys, he is a very articulate speaker. We talk about his 2022 season. We talk about just kind of what a war that was for him. It was a long season. It was a very tight race throughout the entire season. I think 5 racers, 20 points apart for most of the season. So it was neck and neck all season long. He just did a great job of outlining that story. We got into, his 10 years of karting, how he got into motorsports, karting overseas, karting in the US, and then his journey to today, to his 2023 season. So this is a guy, we've had his brother on the show. The family's amazing. I've spent a ton of time with them off camera, just kind of listening to their story and just kind of the character quality of them. And they're very genuine. They're very humble people, and they worked very, very hard as a family unit to get to where they are. 2 champions in the family. You guys, this is a great episode. Can't wait for you to hear it. Enjoy. Formula Access, welcome. We bring the people of motorsports to your doorstep. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a really special guest, Nick D'Orlando, and he has a brother that also races. We have a really special guest today, notably the 2022 USF 2000 champion. I actually followed Michael's career all of last season. The support series in USF is kind of new to me. I get excited about competition, and I've kind of grown a network inside of that series. And so watched him. He had no idea I was doing that, but I was paying attention. And today we've got a really special guy, reigning USF champion, Michael D'Orlando. Michael, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. It's a pleasure.
This was a tough meeting to get set up. So I initially had your mom reach out, and just a quick intro call, like, who are you? What do you do? How can we work together? Turned into like an hour and a half story call. Like, I heard the story of both of you guys and your parents, and I was just like, we should get all of you on the show, not just like one of the boys or both of the boys, but like all of you guys. You have a really unique story to tell, and probably a story that resonates more closely to the rest of the world, and not, not the elite few. So just to get the story started, tell the audience, like, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name is Michael D'Orlando. I am a 20-year-old from New York. I am a college student. I'm actually here in Charlotte right now at University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And I guess I'm a pro race car driver. I'm doing now with the scholarship. I'm moving up to in USF Pro 2000 for the 2023 season. And we're working on a little bit here or there to finalize the last few things to make sure the season gets started. But I mean, that's pretty much me. I'm a car guy outside of it. I drive a 2013 WRX, and I mean, I like to think I'm pretty easygoing.
You're the first person that has ever like self-described them as a pro race car driver. Like, I tell my son this all the time, because I think young people, like, the answer to like, what do you do for fun or what sport do you play is always like football or baseball or cross country or track or whatever it is. And I've watched this with my son, like when he's around a bunch of guys and they're like, well, what do you do? And it's like, well, I play football, I play tennis or baseball or whatever. And he's like, I race go-karts. All of a sudden, like everybody like zeroes in on him and they're like, wait, you do what? Like, you know, like the local track here, he's like, no, like 60 mile an hour, like real competition, go-karting, you know, and they're like, all of a sudden it's this huge, long conversation because it's unique and it's different. And so I always encourage him, like when you're introducing yourself and, you know, you're around guys and you're like, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Or, you know, what do you do for fun? Like mention that. So I applaud you for doing that because it's like, it is a big part of your life right now. And it's, you've got some serious results to hang your hat on. And, yeah, you should scream that from the mountaintops. I appreciate you also talking about kind of your 2023 ambitions, and anybody that's heard the show, you know that I am a big proponent and supporter of sponsors and partners supporting drivers and support series. You never get a Lewis Hamilton without somebody stepping in to a 10-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid's life and kind of helping them get to the top of motorsport and taking that journey with them. So I know the journey that you're going through. I can attest to that. I've witnessed it with a whole lot of drivers, and you'll appreciate the hard work and going into that. And you got some awesome parents that are really kind of grinding it out for you.
Yeah, I mean, I love my parents. I mean, with the family that we have now, it's all one effort, and you know, it's having a whole family behind you, and yeah, it's a little bit of a business here or there, and trying to work on getting sponsorships, but it's more people to get the ball rolling, and it's more of a force to be reckoned with, I say. And I mean, when all four of us are on it and together, then I firmly believe that there's really no one that can stop us, even with the people that are more fortunate than us.
I tell my wife that all the time. I'm like, when I get my wife and my kids around me, I can conquer the world. I totally get where you're coming from in that conversation. I was with a prominent person in the paddock last year at St. Pete at your race. And, you know, I was just having lighthearted conversations over lunch and just kind of talking about like, what do you all look for in a driver? Like, are you looking for the guys winning every single race, podiuming? Like, are you looking for Max Verstappen? Are you looking for like character? Like what is it? You know, money, bank accounts, all of that, you know. And they listed two things, which surprised me. One being character, obviously, and then results. And I was a little taken aback by that. And the more that I've gotten to know you and your family, the more I personally can attest to just your family unit and character. And like, I don't know, I got two young kids. They bicker all the time. They fight. They don't help each other out. And I talk to you guys and you're like, I don't know, Nick said you were the biggest supporter in the paddock. So, you know, you were his like biggest confidant on track. So, you know, that's a big weight to carry. So I'm excited about that. So 2022 USF champion.
Yes.
How was that season? I mean, did you have that locked down early on, or was it a war?
It was a war from the get-go. With the third year with Cape Motorsports and that number four DBC car, sorry. I'm tripping over my words. I mean, we definitely weren't the fastest every weekend, and I mean, it shows. Pap's boys have been quite quick throughout the whole season, and we with the first couple of races, I mean, yeah, we didn't have a win until Lucas Oil, and it was the same in 2021. It was the same position, but I mean, each race up to that point, I was fast enough to, but never had that last little bit, and it's really struggling. It's not struggling. It's kind of annoying to a sense when you know you can get it, but like if you try to push for that last one spot or two spots, then the risk is way higher than the reward is. So when you're thinking of championship, you have to think of it in the long run. So throughout my 2022 season, if you know stats, I'm speaking too fast. Throughout the 2022 season, if you know your statistics, I have 14 top 5 finishes. And I think that is tied for the most, if not the most, of anyone in the entire grid. So the one thing that I've learned early on is that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So when you come into a race season like this, we might not be the fastest every weekend, and we might not be the fastest overall anywhere. But if we have the most consistent results, it'll pay off. So with Miles Rowe and Jace Denmark having, they were really, really competitive throughout the whole season and really stepped it up in the last 2 races at Toronto and at Portland. We had the consistency to keep going. So even though they did end up having more outright pace than us, me and the Cape guys, it still ended up working out. And don't even get me started on Portland. That was a whole, I don't even know how to describe that.
What gets you that? I mean, obviously you don't, it's a spec series. They're all theoretically the same. What gets you that? Is that the synergy that you have with your engineer? Is that the mechanics? I know it's a team sport, but like at the end of the day, the difference between, 2 drivers in the same car, can oftentimes be the setup. So is that where you got your raw speed?
I think for my season in particular, I don't really know how to elaborate on anyone else's. But for mine in particular, it was a mix of everything. So my trust in the Capes, I've known Nicholas and Dominic, and now this was my 3rd year with them. So not only, trusting our decisions, but their trust in me as well, where whatever decision we make, we know can be the right one. And if it's not, then we just backstep and continue forwards. As well as, teammates. I had Jagger Jones this year, who was also a championship. No, not champion. I guess he was a championship contender, but a race winner nonetheless. He was very quick. And having in that last race, Nikki Hayes coming in 2nd place, fending off Christian Weir on the last couple of laps. The team bond, so to say, was there. And even if we didn't have the outright pace that Pabst did or any other team did, because, it's not every race that we didn't. Obviously, Road America, Mid-Ohio, and Lucas Oil were all of my strongest tracks. So coming into those weekends, I also had a little bit more of a leg up. But in scenarios like Toronto and Portland, where we did have, a little bit of a pace gap, it was more so of just trust in the process, trust in the team, trust in myself, and the development that the Capes allowed us as drivers to achieve. So it's more of the bond and the trust in our program and our team rather than outright pace.
Does the road to Indy give you guys media training?
They do a little bit. It's not. It's
You're pretty.
We do a little class at the beginning of the year on media training. So we use certain hashtags and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, people that put effort into it, like I try very hard on that media training and trying to do whatever I can with the little photos and videos that I do end up getting from the series or like my iPhone. So a lot of the media training is more self-taught than it is from the series, because I think they leave out a couple of things here or there, but we don't tell them that. But yeah, I do appreciate some of the stuff that they do. Road to Indy or USF Pro Championships. Wow, that's so hard to say now. USF Pro Championships has been super helpful along the way in any sort of form, whether it's company dinners or the media training and just any sort of, and the scholarship. $406,925 to USF Pro 2000. I'm surprised I memorized the entire number.
Still not enough, right? Like
no, it's sadly.
That's messed up. I I have this like vendetta against motorsports now. Like I'm 20-year fan. You know, I've been kind of vocal about the business of the sport, you know, mostly in Formula One. And IndyCar for me has kind of been something in the last 2 or 3 years I've kind of gotten excited about. And, you know, USF probably more so in the last year and a half or 2 years. But to me, nothing chaps my hide more than watching a really talented driver like lose their seat because they can't pay enough money to the team or to the sport to continue going, or you know, they can't get into a drive because of finances. Like there's so much money out there going into the highest levels, and people wanting competition and talent to kind of flow into the sport. And I've written really extensively about the massive disconnect of like sponsorship dollars, not realizing, you know, in their eyes, how a small percentage of that kind of going down the chain can make a huge difference at the highest levels. And, you know, again, you don't get these guys, Scott Dixon, Will Power, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen. You don't get that without sponsorship dollars.
Right.
And so, you know, and I know last season, you know, Miles had an issue with, you know, potentially not being able to finish the season. And I know most drivers, at least all of the drivers that I know, you know, every dollar that they put into that seat mattered. You know, it wasn't expendable cash. It came with sacrifice, and it came in a belief in the people around the driver. And I know that's relevant in your story as well. So, but again, your answers super articulate, well organized. Like you're primed for the camera. You're primed for big time.
Well, thank you. I try real hard on it. I don't think 3 years ago I would have been this. I've come, I think, a long way from where I used to be.
Yeah, remember a lot of people that I have on the show are media trained. So like it's almost like I can spot high performing people naturally now, but I'm starting to be able to spot people that are really comfortable in front of a camera or recording. Like this is not easy for people. 20 years ago, I'd have never done this. It's just kind of like something you force yourself to do and get comfortable with and then go. So it's last season, all out drag out war to the very end. What was your biggest takeaway? What did you learn from that season besides that it was a marathon? I'm going to shut that door for you.
Well, one thing, anything can happen. It's not over till it's over. And that's, you know, a very common saying, but I was 26 points away from the lead going into Portland. And I ended up winning by 6 points. So a lot of it is be smart about what you drive. You can't win a race in the first corner. You can only lose one, and just drive your own race. It's consistency. As much as I don't want to say marathon, it's all trying to be as smart as you can, making the best decisions as you possibly can, and not letting the emotion or the pressure take over. And in those final moments that it's coming down to the line, and you go in and Miles Rowe was 2 positions back from where he could have been to win the championship. And I knew that. I knew coming into that. I knew in those last couple of laps at Portland that he's there. If he gets those last 2, then I'm finished. I get second place. But it's keeping those thoughts and just having those thoughts and throwing them into the back of your head and be like, focus on here and now. You're driving. You're doing what you love. If you love, for me, that's my biggest thing is I'm driving because I love it. So keep the focus on, look forward, drive your own race, and if you do everything that you possibly can do, then no matter what outcome is, not only will I be satisfied, but I think the outcome would teeter to my favor in the long run.
What surprised you during the season?
So what surprised me? I think having in the middle of the season 5 people all within 20 or 30 points, that was a huge surprise how close the season was. Because in 2021, by the end of Mid-Ohio, which ended up being the last race weekend, there was only 2 people that could have won the championship, and that was me and Kiko. And I was only mathematically capable of doing so, not really a reality. But going into the last weekend, there was 3 of us, and every single one of us had an opportunity. It was a real opportunity, not even mathematical chance. So even in mid-season, there was me, Miles, Jace, and then Jagger and Billy Frazier, all within the top 5, all within 30 to 20 points. And how close the season was this year really surprised me as the last couple of years on. It seems like everyone really stepped up their game. And that was not only a surprise, but I guess it's more of a pleasant surprise to know that, it's a hard series and I won. So it's a feel-good moment.
Yeah, no doubt. So all of for going back to the beginning of our whole conversation, everyone in the United States is all about college sports and your typical professional sports. And I'd say probably in the last 2 or 3 years, like when we go out to dinner with friends, because of things like Drive to Survive, now you're starting to get that, like, oh, you're part of Formula One and tell me about the sport. And did you see this in the episode? Explain this to me. And, people are getting more enamored by it. And I spend a lot of time like, yeah, the glitz, the glam, like that's really cool. The business, the competition. But like, have you checked out the feeder series? Like if you like college sports, imagine watching a 2022 USF season with 5 guys at each other's throats for the whole season. Like that's way better than Drive to Survive for me. Like that's the kind of stuff you watch, and it's a story that you get to follow up the chain. And I really enjoyed last season. I haven't had many dogs in the fight until recently. So now, 2023 is going to be a different environment for me in the road to Indy or whatever they call it now. It'll be, I'm going to always call it that. I think that's what I'm going to always hashtag, but I think this is the way I've always done it. Old guy in me. So I'll learn it eventually.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of people that call it Pro Mazda. Like that hasn't been a thing since 10 years ago, maybe more. So it's or Star Mazda. I mean, Star Mazda. People still call it that. So I mean, now that it went to Star Mazda, the Pro Mazda, the Indy Pro, and now it's USF Pro 2000. There's a lot of names. So yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a problem to keep calling it the road to Indy. It's what we all knew, and change is hard sometimes.
No, I don't feel so old now. That's good. Okay, so I'm a huge adversity guy. So, I like stories of overcoming adversity. And I think nothing defines a person more than when they're squeezed to the breaking point. And this doesn't even have to be in the 2022 season, but like in your career of racing, like what's the hardest thing you've had to overcome? Like in an event where you just like it almost broke you, or you were like, this is ridiculous.
I think to answer that question, I don't think there's any race in particular. I mean, from a driving perspective, it's more of you focus on the task at hand, and if it's not a good weekend, then you learn from it and move on. But in terms of racing seasons and my career, there's always been that moment. whether it's funding or mainly funding, actually, or really just overcoming a championship points gap. And I think the best way to put it is in 2018 and 2019, neither me or Nick were fortunate enough to do a full season in racing. So both years, Nick volunteered to sit, maybe volunteered, self-volunteered, forcibly volunteered. I think it was more selfless of him to do that, because he knew that if he sat for those 2 years, then yeah, the weight would be on my shoulders to keep the family name in racing and continue pushing on to do whatever I can on the track to show that we're capable of doing great things in a race car. But it was hard on both of us, not only me having to break down some of those doors, but for him not being able to get in a car. And a lot of it is sacrifice, and that is a word that we throw around a lot, but not lightly in our family, saying that we didn't grow up as fortunate as many other racing drivers. Like you said, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen never would have happened without partnership. And that's what we've been working on our entire lives. Where it took an army. It takes an army of supporters, friends, team owners, mechanics, coaches. Every single person that helped me along the way is the reason why I'm here. And Nick is number one man, because he had to sit out of a race car, and the one thing that he loves doing and would do anything to continue doing for the forward progress of our family.
You know, I think in the last, I don't know, call it 5 or 6 years, this is like that conversation of like, is motorsports going to become like a billionaire's playground? And you know, and I'm all for meritocracy everywhere, business, school, everywhere. And you know, if there's one thing we've ever learned in the entire history of motorsports in general, is that, you know, a checkbook will get you to the top. It'll get you to IndyCar. It'll get you to Formula One. It doesn't make you win a race, and it doesn't make you a champion. And I think that you see the champions as the people that have fought because they have to earn it, and they have to grind out those seasons where you just can't close that gap, or you just can't pull together the funding, or you have to sit out for a season. Like, to me, that makes you a bulldog. You know, when you've got to sit out and watch what you do happen and you're not a part of that, or, you know, you have to potentially sit on the sidelines because you can't pull that together. And, you know, you see it in Lewis's dad, you know, sacrificed like crazy to get him to that point. But Lewis was a bulldog himself. You know, he overcame a lot of things to get there. Max has not got a peachy story too. I mean, his dad was a racer himself, but like, you know, they effectively destroyed their family in the process of getting him to that point. And, you know, most any champion that you see has had this like tough route. Will Power, I think, did a podcast recently where he talked about, you know, kind of almost throwing in the towel with his wife, like for racing at one point in his career, because it was just like, it was a breaking moment, and overcame it, and you got a champion.
Yeah.
So I know Nick's story, and at this point when this comes out, everybody else will have heard it too. What's your origin story? Like, how did you get started?
It's really the same as Nick's. So I was 6 at the time, and it was more so we loved watching racing on TV, and we had these, I guess, power wheel tractors that Dad would soup up with, you know, with taking off the restrictor and putting a bigger, like a car battery in them, and we'd race around the yard. But when we, you know, showed more interest, and even more and more, Mom and Dad found a go-kart track about an hour and a half from our house called Oakland Valley Race Park. And we started racing there. We took a race school, and we absolutely loved it, since it was more so, I guess dad can fill you in and mom can fill you in with the whole story, since they probably remember it better than we do. But it was more of love at first sight. And at first, I think we actually wanted to do dirt bikes, or like any motorcycles. And
Shut down, right?
pardon?
Shut that one down.
Yeah, I mean, they immediately started. They immediately just saw, heard no. They immediately saw that and said, "No, I think you guys would be safer on four wheels. So to keep all four wheels on the floor," which I still haven't done. St. Pete 2021, if you're not familiar. But it's been a long road since then, and that was the start of an era. We went from regional like club races to national karting races, then raced overseas. I was a factory driver for BRLR, and I mean, as we started getting faster and getting to more national level races, we started to outgrow our parents and needed coaches and actual mechanics to work on our cars instead of, mom and pop mechanicking and telling your kid just to floor it. So yeah. It's been a long road, but it was a fun, wholesome start. Yeah, I remember that race. We got F1 on the background. Yeah, sorry. No. But yeah, it started as a family, and we're trying to keep it that way. We're trying to stay focused and stay together and whole. And I think that is what will guarantee our success, I hope.
So I can resonate with that in a couple of levels. Again, my son is not going to go any higher than he is currently. And, we just do it to have fun and bond, and he likes to drive fast. And, I've been kind of his mechanic since he started, and my father-in-law retired as an engineer and has kind of stepped up and helped me at the track. He builds stuff naturally. And recently just bought a go-kart for himself. I'm imagining to race or just to tinker with or whatever, but now he's sending me text messages and pictures. If I could show him on here, I would. But, it's like, I took your carburetor apart and I tuned it all up, and, it's way faster now, Ryan. Like, I know he means well by it, but it's kind of like, like a stab in the heart. Like, he's way better of a mechanic than I am. And, I'm going to go from like hands greasy at the race to like sitting in a chair, drinking coffee and letting him do it all, because he's better at it. I can imagine how, I don't know, as a dad, how different that might have been. I'll have him on the show and I'll ask him that question. But
yeah, I don't really know what it's like to be in that perspective, but
oh, no. As a dad, it sucks. You want to be everything. You want to be the guy that hung the moon. So that's great. So it's interesting. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to like transition into this. So I had Lando Norris's dad on the show a couple months ago, and we were talking. Both of his sons came up the kart scene in Europe, and he was telling me they had the same kart, the same training, the same resources, the same everything, and like there was a break point where it was, Lando was like became the racer and his brother became the business end. I don't know if I feel that from you guys at all. Like between you and Nick, like I feel like it. I mean, you're not twins like Mario and his twin brother. You're not like Lando and his brother, but like it seems to me like you guys are both equally like terrifyingly talented. You guys feel that way? You can be honest with that.
Not to be arrogant, but I feel like it's that way too. It's more like from karting, there's been so many times where it was me and Nick just ahead of everyone else. And that's statistic, that's fact. I think most of that comes from that we're just too stubborn to stop. But it's more of like the brotherly competition where if I'm faster than you, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be faster than the other one. And then it got to the point that one of us was the fastest one. And then say I was the fastest at Homestead, Miami, the go-kart track there. And Nick would go, well, I can't have that. And he'd be fast. And then he'd, set a lap time faster than me. So what ended up being like a half tenth faster than the second guy, me and Nick would end up keep pushing each other to our next level. And by the end of the weekend, be 0.3 a lap quicker than everyone else and just pull away. So it's more so that we can't seem to, we're sore losers. That's really all it is. If we beat each other, it's like, ha, you stink. Like kind of like a brotherly love kind of thing. Just the competition never stops. If you ask who is better driver, the answer is the same no matter the brother. It's me. I'm better.
So, by the way, that's exactly what Stefan Johansson said about what I asked him the question. I said, how do you know when you got a driver, like a real driver on your hands? That's what he said. He's like, they just have a self-belief that they got it, like, and it's going to happen. And, maybe the audience takes that answer and is like, wow, these guys are pretty full of themselves. Like that is so from the truth. Because I've actually spent more time off camera with your family than I have on camera and email exchanges. And you guys are just like, you're really a great family, dynamic relationship. Like all of you, like the last time I was on, I had your dad, your mom and Nick, and, we talked for a long time after the show. So you guys have a really great family, very grounded people. And there's a ton of humility behind that self-belief. So it's great.
Well, I'd like to think that, even though we are drivers and it seems like from the outside world, we get to live the dream. We're working very hard, and it's just like every other person out there that, wants to achieve their goals, whatever job they are, an athlete, we're no different. We don't come from anything super special. So we've worked for everything that we have, and we will continue to work for it. And that's been our motto in life. We don't stop until we get there. And it's a lot of people have that mindset and everyday goers. And I don't think I see myself any different. It's more of just, I do it different.
I can appreciate that. I don't follow any sort of pattern or recognition. And I actually applaud you for saying that or believing in that, because I think when you shine in the sun, you don't do it by doing the same thing everyone else does. No. Your parents told me something during kind of our initial phone call. Your mom mentioned that, because I kind of asked, I was like, who's your manager? Like, how do you guys like make decisions or whatever? And, she was saying that both of you take a ton of ownership and the decisions that you make. They're kind of like your backup, but you guys really drive kind of what teams you go to, the people that you surround yourself, kind of what you do. That's leadership. But like, how do you make those decisions? When you are not sitting there with a bank account with $1 million in it saying, I can have my pick of a team, like, how do you make that decision and tell one team from another? Because it's a spec series. They're all the same, but they're not, and that's usually comes down to the team, to the setup, to the infrastructure, behind it, extracting every thousandth of a second out of that machine. How do you make that decision ahead of time?
So if you allow me to use an example from what I've been doing these past couple of weeks for my 2023 season, obviously with a scholarship it kind of negates a lot of that need for money. Well, obviously, we still need more of that, some funding to finalize this season. A lot of it is more so you need to get a feel of the teams. And a lot of the time that's from testing, preseason testing. So you test a team's car, whether it's, I'll just throw some teams out there that I know from USF, whether it's Cape car or the Paps car. And yeah, the car setup is always going to be, the team's always going to have their way of doing things. But it's also about trust, whether you trust the engineer, you trust the team owner, you trust to have the same equipment as the next guy, and that they trust you, where your decision on the car, if you're adamant that, yeah, this change is going to help me, that they would respect that. And it's a lot more about picking your friends instead of a business component. It's a trust and determination factor, a gut feeling. So when I was picking my teams this year, I went out of my way to drive to Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama, or to go to Chicago, or go to Indianapolis to see these teams, to understand how they work, how they do things, how they think, and become friends with them all. I guess that's really the way you need to think about it. And racing is a network of connections.
Yep.
And the people that you have the closest connection to are the people that you're going to be closest to, and the people that you want to keep right by you. So with the Capes, this for the past 3 years, obviously they are one of the most winningest teams in the entire road to Indy, but I feel like they're family now. It's more so when I hopped in their car, and it was when I first started testing for them in 2020. I was flown out to Florida and hopped on a bus from the airport to Palm Beach International Raceway, and just to spend some time with them before I ever did my first test. And they welcomed me with open arms.
Yep.
And it's a lot of that. It's more of the understanding of, I know I can trust these guys rather than my budget allows me to. And a lot of the time, because of funding and all that stuff, you kind of have to go with the lower price point guy just to keep your butt in a seat. But it's a lot more that goes into it than just results. It's the teamwork and the connection and the trust that goes both ways. And the way you think and work with the engineer is super important, because the engineer is your best friend. And if you're on the same page with the engineer, that goes everywhere. That'll take you all the way up to IndyCar. That's if you have the right people behind you. And that's pretty much all it is with the team.
Yeah. Yeah, you hear that at the highest levels as much as you hear it down below. I mean, I hear it from young drivers all the time how important the relationships with the team are, and the trust that you have in them to deliver a car. But just, I don't know, I think of like marriage, like guys and girls go together, but like some personalities don't. And, your ability to communicate is probably most of that. And, I just know in business, during a negotiation, you could be saying the same thing, but it comes out two different ways. And, it's trying to take, I said 1 + 2 = 3, and so did you, but we heard it differently. 2 + 1 = 3, and trying to arrive at that final place where we get each other. And again, I've been on the sidelines. My son's tried to communicate to me what the go-kart's doing, and I'm trying to understand how I can help him with setup. It's like speaking two languages.
It really is.
Do you have a driver coach? I mean, do you have somebody that kind of coaches you physically, mentally, racecraft? I mean, how do you, or is that natural?
I think a lot of it is more of the many people that I feel like I can reach out to. If I ever have a question about what I think is right or what I think I can do to prepare for a race or a podcast, it's more so I reach out to people that are close to me that I've done it before, and we don't historically we put faith in the teams to where they supply their coaches, and normally the teams will provide their own coach and or be the coach, and we don't have one hired person that'll be there for us, whether it's a life coach or an on-track coach. We don't have any of that. A lot of the stuff we've been doing has been on our own or the people that have been by us.
You do a ton of extracurricular stuff too. Like I kind of going into this podcast, I went through your LinkedIn profile. By the way, it's rare for a driver to have that as big of a platform as that is with business owners and people with big checkbooks. I was impressed that like your whole family is on that. That's actually how your mom reached out to me was through LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, these are my people. Like, I like this. You hammer down for hope. I mean, now you have a foundation in addition to this hectic, busy schedule and fundraising season you have. Like, what is that?
So Hammer Down for Hope is our fundraising foundation. It's a charity organization that we're trying to promote and get up off the floor. We've done it's in progress right now, so it's there's no meat to that sandwich yet. It's kind of just bread, but we're working on it. We're trying to bring it up, and we aim to be doing a lot of work with children's hospitals, whether like cancer and all that kind of stuff. If you've seen back last year in May, I did an event with National Pediatric Cancer Foundation with a 14-year-old kid named Kier with bone cancer. So it's these kind of events that we aim to be doing with Hammer Down for Hope. But it's more so a love for it and a passion than it is because it looks good on paper.
Yeah. So it's still a vision being created.
Yeah. I mean, we're still have events and all those things, but we're still developing the structure. So the foundation isn't quite there yet.
See, you're a good guy helping people.
Yeah, I've 13 years at a Catholic private school. My parents thought it would be super supportive and helpful that we get a good education through there, and we were blessed enough to have been raised by a tight group of Christian brothers. So a lot of it's in our blood and the way we were raised.
Look, you're a race car driver. You know, it's at whatever level it is, it's cool. I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, and her nephew was battling cancer, and she works in Formula One. And, her nephew, huge Formula One fan. He's in Australia, she's in Europe working in the sport. And, the only way that they could connect was to watch races together. And, while he was in the hospital going through the worst of it, like that's kind of how they connected with each other. And, she kind of did the same thing, call it, but, she got, some of the drivers on the paddock involved with it. I think, Ricardo sent him a bunch of swag, while he was at the hospital, and Lewis went on like an hour Zoom call with him and chatted with him. And like, you just think like for a young person at the worst point of their life, when you spend time with them, like you're cool. You've raced a go-kart, USF car, IndyCar, like you're cool. And, I think it means a lot to people. And I think sometimes that hope and that appreciation or the gratitude helps them go all the way. I applaud you. I kicked this podcast around for probably a year before I ever did anything with it. It was kind of always there. I never had the vision or the system for it. And then when I finally caught it, we just kind of jumped in and went 100 miles an hour, and it's doing awesome. So keep doing that. And when you're an IndyCar driver making $100 million a year, then you'll have a process, and then you'll have a team too.
Yeah, I hope so. This is something that we're super passionate about.
So one thing that most drivers do when they're young is quit school and race. You decided to race, win championships, and go to school, and obviously run a foundation. What are you going to school for?
So I am a college student at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So not only have I moved from New York to come down here, but I'm full time. So I live in an apartment with 3 other guys, my brother, my good friend Guy, and a good friend James. But initially, I wanted to do mechanical engineering with a focus in motorsports because this school offered that. But soon realized that it's for engineers and not for drivers. So a lot of time was spent racing instead of doing engineering work, and they did not see that to be optimal. And with a lot of tough classes like high level calculus classes and engineering, and trying to build stuff with I could go on and on. I'm trying to make it sound simpler than it is. But it was complicated. It was really complicated, and that was effort that I couldn't put in and split from racing. So what I've done is, actually at the beginning of 2022, I switched to business marketing. So right now I'm on the process of switching to that program. So I was in the engineering college, and now I'm in the process of applying to the business college because I still have some general education courses to be taking to get into that college. But yeah, it's not only that. We've founded a small group of motorsport and car guys around here, and we're trying to grow that brand with a whole bunch of friends. So it's just like the car culture side of things. So I'm a motorhead through and through. So whether it's in a race car or on my Subaru, we're doing everything. So it's one thing that even with racing and college and the foundation and even the hunt for extra funding, I never stop, but it's fun. I love doing all of it. And being down here is a completely new lifestyle. Even though I came down here for mechanical engineering, I found a second home, and a lot of it is just good people, and I could go on and on. I kind of moved down here now.
It's a good area to be for the career that you've chosen.
I think so.
But the business end is going to pay dividends. I think, when you really need to bulldoze your way through things, it matters to know how the system works. Again, just as much as if I'm a driver with an engineering degree and I know how to communicate to my engineer because we speak the same language, is just as valuable as a driver that understands business, and just kind of why sponsorship matters to that business owner, not to you, because frankly, nobody cares. It's when they know where the value proposition is and then hear your story, they care so much that they want to see that story carried out. And in the process of that, they gain tons of revenue. I told this to your brother, like I was at the Andretti Hospitality with my wife in St. Pete, and we were sitting there having lunch and business cards were flying around left and right. Like, you only get in hospitality by being a partner or a sponsor. In IndyCar, you can be a friend, but like, you really, that's how you get there. And you're dealing with people that have the same passions that you do. And that is an immediate like barrier breaker and allows you to really say, to my wife, oh, you do marketing. I need marketing. Here's my business card. Call me when you get back home. And like, immediately transactions begin to occur, which they would have never occurred in the grandstand. They would have never occurred, where you're eating breakfast at the hotel. That occurs at the track. And when that need is showcased in sponsorship, and why that sitting at that lunch table together matters, you can easily articulate that. Or as I, talk to young drivers and I try to tell them how easy it is to get, $1,000 in sponsorship from a small business, because, you can promote a small local business with a huge story and a ton of content around it. If you're willing to do it, I see kids do it at the track here all the time. It's awesome to see that business is taking place at kind of a recreational kart level. So
Right.
I applaud you, man. That's awesome to go to school too. Like, you don't have a backup plan, but you have something that you're going to appreciate. I didn't go to college till I was an adult and my kids were little, and I had to wait till they went to bed. And that's when I studied, and my wife studied, and we did all of our night school and online courses backwards. So get it done now.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate it when you're a professional.
You did talk about backup plan though, like you mentioned it earlier. I think there's really no need for one when you have a network and a group of people that is by you this entire time, and especially in racing, it's its own backup plan. Racing is its own backup plan. So even if for some bizarre reason that I don't get to race anything, I can still coach. I can still do anything, all the stuff that I built around here with the car culture. I can still be involved in some way, which I love about this industry.
That was my hesitation when I said that. Mario Andretti told me, never have a plan B. Don't even consider it. And so, again, he's a sweet guy.
Full force, one direction. That's how you make it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. What do they call it? Light the ships on fire. I think, what was that?
I think so.
An old conquistador story where he landed in South America and
yeah.
came on the beach and he sunk all the ships, so they had no other option but to go fight.
We're gonna make this work. That's what it is.
Yeah. I should probably memorize that story so I communicate it better.
I thought it was good enough. No worries.
that one time that happened, a long time ago. So, okay, this is always a big question for me. So, in, call it 15 years in motorsport, what's been your pinch me moment?
Pinch me moment.
Yeah, I know the answer to that, but like, what is your answer?
And like, I feel like I'm dreaming kind of moment.
Yeah, like, how did I end up here? I can't believe I'm here.
Yes, I really think that the thing that I felt this year after winning that championship, I've never felt anything like it. It was relief, pure joy, and pride.
Yeah.
I wish there was another way to describe it. It's more of a feeling that you need to feel yourself to completely understand. And something that I've been working towards for the past 15 years, I've finally accomplished a huge, huge milestone in my career. Something that will stand in history, something that I can always go back on and remember that day, and something that I think can not only help but boost my career forwards. I've never felt anything like it. I don't know any other time. Yeah, there's like times that you spend with your family and it's relaxing, but I've never felt something so relieving in my entire life.
That's not an easy road. I think people forget that, Formula One fans, it's like the car does a lot of the work, not all of it. It's not everything, but and I think in motorsports, people just don't appreciate how hard it is to win and how challenging that road is, both mentally and physically. And just, I'm a business owner. I've gone through the whole process of coming up with an idea, raising money, building a company, building a business, building a product, building a team, and then, and then selling it. And just kind of that whole journey is not easy, and people think any entrepreneur is Elon Musk, and it's not at all. It's the total opposite. That's, three guys on planet Earth have that story. Everyone else is it's a grind. It's war. It's, it's five guys duking it out on track for an entire season within 20 points. That's right. Going to be my example now forever. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
What didn't you expect in motorsports? Is there a system or something out there that just has surprised you about this whole journey that you're taking?
Might need a moment for that.
Yeah, you're good. This is how we prove to the audience that it's not scripted.
Yeah. I think to make it where I am, just to be here, let alone IndyCar or Formula One, how much work it takes. I've been racing my whole life, so some of it doesn't really come as a surprise. And I knew from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, how much work it'd be taking. And then yet every year I work more and more and more and harder and hopefully smarter about what we're doing. And it's constant work. And you have to live, breathe, think driving every single moment and optimize every single time you're in a car. And you have to know more than you do. I don't know. That's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to talk about from my perspective. Because there's no right way to do any of it.
No.
So that I guess that is the biggest surprise to me, is that there's no one set way to achieve my dream. It's not like a math problem where 2 divided by 2 is 1. You can get. I guess it's not as simple as that, is it?
Welcome to entrepreneurship.
Yes.
There's no formula. There is no plan. The plan is make decisions, move forward, keep going. And honestly, reach out to people for wisdom. Young people lack this in spades, which is how do I do this? Not just give me the answer, but take that answer and make it your own and execute on that. So many young people. I have a 15-year-old son, and he's like me. Schools. He doesn't agree with the system. I've never agreed with the system. And so, it's why do I need to do art if I want to be an engineer? It's that's the system. You can't change the system, but you can learn to thrive in it. And so, so now we're going to learn how the system works. And I think that, a career in motorsports is one of the hardest careers for anyone to choose because there is no roadmap. It's so relational, and it's almost like rogues win, because not being in a system or a formula works really well for your personality, because it's like, I don't know what to do, but I like that. I love the process, and I love trying to figure it out and make it work for me. And I think that's something I appreciate about your family, because you guys, like, you grind it out, you duke it out as a unit and as a family. And I think what you're going through is, like, all of you are champions in the making. And I joked with Nick about, like, the Andretti's and whatnot. Like, you guys are like the next Andretti dynasty coming up the ranks.
I hope so.
And I feel like that generation, like, like Chip and Mario and, AJ and these guys, like, they appreciate that, because they made motorsports what it is today, like, by not having any clue of how things work, but just learning how to work really well within what was there. They made it their own. I mean, it's really rare to have, that level of success. And when you kind of come across it, you see it, where you're like, okay, I got a family grinding. This isn't like billionaire vanity metrics. Like, these weren't purchased. These are real. Like, this is real talent. It's real sacrifice. It's real blood, sweat, and tears. So
yeah, I think
hopefully that opened up that answer, because I think it's a really good answer. I think what you had is a really good answer. Is like, yeah, it's really, I didn't expect to not know what to do. It feels right. I think I'm doing the right thing, but I'm not really sure, because it's not like corporate America, where it's like you're an analyst and then a senior analyst and then a manager. Like, there's a really clear defined path, where for you, it's like the series is the path.
Right.
But it's not always that clear defined, because you could be in that series for 2 or 3 or more seasons before you step up. And
right.
So
I think
I love that.
Well, I think to more properly answer the question, I have realized that the number one thing that I've learned is listening to other people on what they've done, mm-hmm. and kind of deciding for yourself whether that's something that you want to do, and getting into a ballpark of ideas and steps and anything that doesn't really fit you as a driver, because obviously motorsports is so large that you can kind of be your own person within it. So not only as a character and a human, but as a driver. So everyone sees us as, like, in Formula One, 20 figures in a car, just driving around in circles. But it's way more than that. Racing allows us to, I guess it is an art. What you were saying, it's a mixture of everything. It allows us to express ourselves, like, as a driver, but also has a high engineering and, I guess, technical mindset with a process. And it may not be one set process, but it's our process. And that's how we keep going. That's how we elevate. That's how we get where we want to go. So even from a driver's perspective, you may have an opportunity close the door on you, but because you have your ballpark of things that you want to do and opportunities and ideas, that just because one door closes doesn't mean that the other 20 didn't or did as well. So I think it's more just put it all together as you go, but have a process as you do it. So it's a mixture of both. There's no one set way of doing it, but it's not, go with the flow either.
Who's your most trusted confidant at the race?
My
Like
engineer.
it's like motorsports is a bloodbath. Like nobody's going to give you the trade secrets or any of that. They're not going to help you if you're, Miles isn't going to help you, lay out a lap. And so, you get a lot of, nobody gives you advice or helps you, or like, can I trust, the information that I'm getting or the answer that I'm looking for? Like, who's that person that will shoot you straight on the grid, that'll shoot you straight and keep your feet on the ground?
So do you mean as a driver or
Yeah.
or anyone? Because I mean, I feel like if it's a
Yeah,
driver
it could be. I'm not asking for another driver's name. I'm like, who's
okay.
the
Well,
side?
I don't think there really is when you're a driver, when you're out there. There's always, I mean, other than teammates, because in the final race at Portland, Nikki Hayes and had my back in that race, so like I know there. But I think for the real answer, it's Nick and my family. There's no candy coating anything. If I need to know something, they'll tell it to me straight. And if Nick's out there, if he knows, if I'm in the car or something, and we're both out there, and he knows that I need that one spot, or I need to him to hold off another driver to get the championship, I think we'll all do it. And from like the trust perspective that I go back to before, it's team and engineer. Anyone that's in our that tight circle is people that I can trust to tell me anything. So it is a competition. It's a race. You're always going to have that. You're always going to have people that are going to try and beat you, and they're going to hide stuff from you. They're not going to tell you everything. They're going to hold secrets to themselves. And I do it too. When I'm doing data, when I'm doing our debrief after sessions, if my teammate asks for, a little bit of advice, I'm not going to tell them the whole story.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell them everything, because that also jeopardizes what I know. So if I just go around telling everyone what I know, then they know it as well. So like my hidden advantage is gone. And every driver, every team, every engineer is always going to have that. And that's not like illegal. That's not cheating by any means. It's more so like you have a strategy. You have like a passing maneuver, or a place that you can make you can make a pass in, or a corner that nobody else knows how to do. And a lot of that is some stuff that you keep hidden. So there's always those, depending on who you have around you, there's always gonna be people that, like for the Capes for the past 3 years, if I ask them something, I truly believe and trust that they're going to give me the whole answer. And the same for my brother and my family and everyone else that's helped me get to where I am. But as soon as we start competing against people, or maybe a future competitor, you start hiding things.
Yeah, that's normal. That's normal. I had one dad tell me at the beginning of the season this year, I didn't know how to take the clutch off the go-kart and clean it, or that you even had to do it. And so I got to the race, and I knew something needed to be done. And so I went to one of the dads, and I was like, hey, what do I do? And he's like, whatever help you need, I got you. As soon as Kyle starts challenging my son, you're on your own, man. He's like, But until then, anything that you need, you just ask. And he's been like, he's been one of the best dads on the paddock, and just kind of helping me not overcomplicate that thing, that go-kart.
Yeah, that's pretty similar. Like, well, as drivers, we always have our close friends. A friend of mine, Kalen Frederick, overseas in F3, and whether it's other competitors that I race against, Jagger Jones, Jackson Lee, like two of my teammates. I could just start naming people, which I did. But it's the competitors that you have. Sometimes in racing, you could be good friends with them. So obviously, when you're having fun, or they ask for a little bit of advice, and you're not racing against them, then you'll let a little bit slide and be like, yeah, here's this. But as soon as they start getting in competition with you, you start hiding things.
Yeah. Good job. What's the ultimate goal? Like
The ultimate goal for me, I'd love to be an IndyCar driver, and I mean, as much as people throw around where they want to be in racing, and I'd love to be a full-time IndyCar driver. And no matter what, I don't really think. Obviously, I do care that if I win like the 500 or a championship or even just a race, that's something that I'm going to continue to strive for and shoot for the stars. But if I shoot for the stars and land on the moon, then I still landed on the moon. That's progress. So if I aim for an Indy 500 win or a championship, and I just get to IndyCar and I don't do anything great, but I stay in it, and I'm doing what I love, because racing for me is whatever, no matter what I drive, it is my passion. It is something that I will continue to do and continue to work for the rest of my life. And whether it is even IndyCar, maybe it's IMSA, or luckily Formula One, NASCAR, or even any rally car, it could be any avenue. As long as I'm driving, I'm going to be happy. But obviously, like I said, shoot for the stars. IndyCar Championship, 500. That's what I aim. That's what my goal is. I'm going to continue working for it, and maybe even after I achieve that, then I find another goal. But I mean, I'm not going to stop until I get there, and that's something that I'm going to keep aiming for. But I'm not by any means going to be disappointed if I get to IndyCar and I don't win anything. I'm still racing IndyCar.
You were in second place in 2021, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll win a race. You're all right. You just need to go through the seasons. You'll make it up there.
Yeah, I mean, for the past 3 years, I didn't finish anything out of the top 4 in the championship. So I mean, if I keep along the same lines, and if I just keep tugging ahead, then I guess I'll fight to win at every level.
You got this. You got this. Okay, last question. What advice do you have for young drivers? Young kids, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to be a race car driver. Hear it directly from the source. What do you got to do?
If you love driving, then you will do anything to continue driving. Racing is a passion. It's in your blood. And I call that the rush. But I think for young drivers, I think go-karting is the most important part about maturing as a driver and as a person, being smart with your maneuvers on track, and just experience overall. There is no more efficient way to get seat time and track time than a go-kart. And I firmly believe that. As much go-karting as I did 10 years of go-karting. And I'd like to think I'm one of the most feisty drivers on track in terms of who can outrace me. I don't think there's really much, if I'm being completely honest. But do whatever you can to do it as a family, grow your group of people that you trust, whether it's good friends, have people supporting you, and do whatever you can to just not stop driving. Because no matter what, if you continue to keep pushing and you think you're truly ready to move up and shoot for the stars, then don't stop. It's for anything in life. You got to work for what you want. And sometimes maybe that's not the answer you want to hear if you want to drive, and maybe you just want it gifted to you. But that's maybe if you really want to get to IndyCar, you're gonna work for it. And I think go-karting, in having a family and a group of those people behind you, is the best answer to how to get there.
That is a perfect question. Perfect answer. I think that's what it takes. It's the passion. There's nobody that I've had on this show in any part of motorsports, whether you're professional TikToker or you are, Zach Brown, it's a passion. And that passion like makes everything else not matter, which is like the hard work, the grind, the not knowing what to do, all of that. And it makes it fun. So, man, Michael, seriously, thank you for coming on the show. Like
Thank you.
You're a really good speaker.
I try.
You're okay
thank you.
with silence, that's the hardest thing about public speaking is silence. And you've got really articulate, well thought out answers. That's going to do you well when you're, an IndyCar and a race winner, and you have to talk to NBC Sports every day.
I learned from the best, and obviously, thank you for having me on the show. I mean, this has been it's been really fun having you, talking to you here. And I hope that hopefully I can continue to look back on this and learn a little bit more about how I articulate my words. So, thank you for saying I at least do a good job, because I don't think it's good enough. But I think that's the race car driver in me, isn't it?
Yeah, that stuff matters when you get higher up. So kudos. And we're going to follow you around. We're going to have you on the show when you win in 2023. And we'll tell that story and just keep going.
Let's go.
It's awesome, man. Thanks for coming on. Seriously, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.